Hey Scott, how's it going?
How you doing, Joe? Great. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, so today we have Scott Taylor, the data whisperer.
That's me.
So the
Yes.
entire interview is actually just going to be him whispering the whole time. So
I don't whisper. So, spoiler alert, I don't do a lot of whispering. I save the whispering for the data. I'm out there shouting about the strategic value of proper data management. That's my particular focus.
that's awesome. So for people who don't know who you are, you want to give a quick intro?
There's people who don't know who I am.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm
Well, no, I
speculating.
probably just feel it. So I said Scott Taylor, data whisperer, help calm data down. That's what data management does. It helps calm data down. I've been in the data management space for 20 something years. Started off at Nielsen, or a company that's now part of Nielsen. Also worked at Dun and Bradstreet, consultant for WPP and Kantar. So worked for a lot of really iconic, globally known marquee data brands, and have always been in data from the provider side. So talking to enterprises about better ways they could use syndicated data, master data, reference data, metadata, structured data. So that's where I come from. And then got good at talking about it. In my boutique consultancy, Meta Consulting, we're about what it's about. And I talk about talking about data. That's pretty much what I do.
I'm gonna have to start a consulting company, Meta Consulting, just to
Meta. Yeah. So, all
yeah,
right.
just keep on
I
going.
should capture all those domains there. So I do a lot of content, as you've seen,
Mhm.
content, work with brands, help them express their data story, data management story, work with enterprises as well, like data governance, data management departments who are trying to get more funding, better support, stakeholder engagement. But I do it all from a very business accessible side. And I also characterize myself as I'm the why, not the how. So implementation, I don't do it. Anything literally physical, I don't touch it. But if you need to figure out how to convince your CEO in that 5-minute meeting you're going to get to give you funding and support and even understand what data management's all about, I'm your guy.
This brings up an interesting question, right? Because I think time and time again, we both see people trying to convince stakeholders, C-level or whichever, about why data should be important, but then they gravitate towards the how part. So like, yeah, we need to do data, therefore let's invest a lot of money in technology. How do you convince a stakeholder to want to do data and why it's important?
Everyone I've ever spoken to, they want to understand the why. Why is this important for my company? Why is this going to help me do what I already think I can do? Why should we put all this money into something I don't even understand when things like marketing and sales and operations are much more accessible to a lot of leaders out there? So the counsel I give the data side, the data leaders, is you want to tie what you're doing in data to the strategic intentions of your enterprise. Where's your company going? And show how data can help you get there. And stay away from your life story about how you did it. So I know, especially on the data science side, on the analytics side, people are really enamored to explain every step in their methodology. We use Python, we use R, and we use SQL. No, we didn't use SQL. No, we use NoSQL. All this other stuff it's techniques. I was listening to Kate's interview with you, and she came up with that great analogy of a doctor doesn't come up to you and say, "Oh, I use this stethoscope, and I'm using just like here's what's wrong." I thought that was beautiful. I said, "I'm stealing that from you right away, Kate." So, but that is truly the approach you have to take. Though you need to understand the how. You have to get it done, because if you make a promise to leadership or explain something to leadership and they agree and they support it, then you better deliver. But if you can't explain that why, I don't think you're going to get there.
Why do people struggle with why?
It's more conceptual. Sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes it takes a certain amount of I don't know if it's business empathy, but you've got to truly understand where something else is going. The person you're talking to, what is important to them. And when you look at an enterprise, businesses are in business to do a thing, as far as I'm concerned, deliver value to their relationships through their brands at scale. That's digital transformation. Doing that statement at scale, figure that out if you're on the data side. Figure out what those relationships are, what your brands are, how you can deliver that value. I'm talking rather generically. I'm not trying to talk in a cliched aspect, but a lot of work I do is across so many industries that I've got to come up with ways to articulate it so it's relevant to a varied audience. Mm-hmm. So when I say relationships, it could be customer, vendor, partner, prospect, citizen, patient, client, all the different relationships that people have depending on the vertical they're in or the industry they're in. When I talk about brand, every business has a brand. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be an offering, it could be some form of digital as a service delivery through a subscription. It could be a tangible good that gets manufactured through ingredients and piece parts and all those levels and elements that make up that brand. And when I talk about value, in my experience, there's only 3 areas of value for a business: grow, improve, and protect. You want to grow the business, increase sales. You want to improve the business, operational efficiency. You want to protect the business, mitigate risk, security. Data can do all 3 of those things. Another part of the answer to your question is the practitioner side of the data space can be so involved, and people are really, and rightly so, proud of their skills that they focus on those skills. I learned R. Okay, I don't know what R is. R, as far as I'm concerned, is a pirate's favorite programming language. I don't understand that. I don't get into that kind of physical activity, but I do think I can understand the motivation of some folks who are just focused on that how. That's something but understanding the why, that's really the key to a lot of things. Simon Sinek kind of popularized why recently, but he didn't come up with it. I was taught early on, decades before Simon, that the best kind of rationale goes through 5 whys. It's like the 3-year-old version, of a 3-year-old. Why? And you answer, well, because, well, why? Well, because, why? So if you can answer 5 levels of why, you're pretty much getting to the core of the reason something exists.
Mm-hmm. Do you use 5 whys quite often in your work?
Do I what?
Do you use the 5 whys often in your work?
Not, I just sort of informally, but I listen to folks, and, when I talk to them, I'll go, okay, why? Why? So I don't have a formal 5 why framework, but I learned it a long time ago. It just becomes kind of second nature. It's not always 5. Sometimes it's 3. Sometimes it's 7. But you're
always digging, though, right? You're trying to get the answer behind the answer.
You keep digging in there. What's behind that? What's behind that? What's behind that? My father used to tell me, my father was a brilliant salesperson, and when I was a kid, I would come up and sort of ask him for something, and he would just go, "What's the real question?" He could tell, being such a brilliant person, that there was something behind that we weren't getting to yet. And so as a, young teenager, or even as, 9 and 10-year-old, to have someone that professional kind of use their skills on you was actually quite a learning experience.
That's awesome. You had those ingrained at such a young age.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Because these are definitely kind of like, I wouldn't call them Jedi mind tricks per se, but they're pretty close. Right?
Get there, yes.
So, it's amazing what you can uncover, though. Just I think through good dialogue and whatnot, and it's interesting because I think you bring up a good point. Like I come from almost the exact opposite. Like my business is very much how, right? So it's technology based, but time and time again, the stumbling blocks have nothing to do with technology. It's the purpose and vision behind data, from the C-level down that normally, I think, dictates whether or not somebody like myself is going to be successful at a client. So
clearly, and successful at any, at a broad level. You
uh-huh.
might do a nice little POC.
Right.
But if what you're doing in data isn't support, I tell people, it's like, imagine your CEO just jumps into your office or gives you a call and just says, okay, what are you doing for us? Why is it important?
Right.
Not even in a challenging, like, okay, you're going to get fired way. You should have that little nugget in your head so you can answer those questions. You don't want to go, well, I was.
So I mean, it's I mean, there's this cliched statistic that like 85% of big data projects or data projects fail, right? I don't know what this, regardless of whether it's stat. I mean, what are some of the things that you're seeing that may contribute to data not getting off the ground?
I focus consistently on that foundational piece. So if you don't have master data, reference data, metadata, MDM, RDM, PIM, DAM, all those foundational operational things that create the content that can be trusted by the organization and by folks like you who then want to use it to deliver greater value through insight, through data science, and so on, then those end results don't get operationalized by the business. They don't get accepted because they don't trust them. I mean, obviously I'm big on, trust is truth over time. I'm a big truth guy, truth in data, hence the hat and the brand and all the rest of it. And I think people skip that part. That's why I'm such a zealot about the data management part of the space, which is relatively unsung. It's certainly the compared to the business intelligence side, not as glamorous. There's not a lot of big sexy things going on in the data management space. MDM as a practice area has been around for decades. Nothing, new techniques, new software, but the idea of it doesn't really excite the general business populace. Yet it is, you get to these experts, and part of the inspiration for me writing the book I wrote was a career of talking to really great data management experts and leaders at really large organizations and hearing a consistent frustration from them. Like, if they only got it, like the business doesn't get it, like we're doing, and having every kind of analogy just not ring through. But they like me because I could bring a little, excitement to it. It brings some energy to it, some passion to it, some humor to it. And so I had an unusual voice in that space because there weren't a lot of people jumping up and down going, this is really important. You've got to listen to this. And standing up to a certain extent, not to be too competitive, standing up to the analytics side, which tends to take the spotlight.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and in some cases actually gets really competitive. And if I might even use this word, derogatory towards the data management part of the community, because they will glibly stand up at a session somewhere and say, data is just a cost center without analytics, or data is worthless until I put my intelligent insight on it. Or, it's not about the data, it's about the analytics. And I go, stop. Why does it have to be this zero-sum game here?
mm-hmm.
Why do you have to be disparaging to another part of the company's work, another discipline that actually is under the data space? So the parable I use is you never hear a baker say, this flour is worthless until I turned it into bread. They respect the ingredients. So my appeal to the analytics side of the space is respect the ingredients and the people who put those together.
Oh, you're psychic. I was about to talk about raw ingredients. It definitely seems like a fitting description, right? It is interesting, this dichotomy between analytics and master data, for precisely the reasons you bring up. I think there's there's sort of this arrogance with analytics where it's like, yeah, we'll just take the data and do stuff with it. It'll make fun, pie charts and whatever. But the data is garbage, obviously. To the raw ingredient analogy, if you got moldy ingredients, like you can make a great pizza off of like like stale pepperoni and stuff. I guess I don't know why you would do such a thing, but if you want it, go for it.
It's going to taste terrible. It doesn't matter how good a cook you are. It doesn't. Food is my favorite category of analogies when talking about data, because you can divide up all the parts. You've got, I'm more on the sous chef ingredients side. You've got analytics leaders there, kind of the chef. You've got the end result, which is the meal. You've got the recipe, which is the methodology. You've got the business that's hungry, not going in linear. So that works better than, some of the hackneyed stuff around data is the new sun, the new oil, the new blah, 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 blah. Because the purpose of that kind of imagery is to shortcut the communication process for the audience to understand what you are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And if it makes it more complicated, then it's not working. It just doesn't work. And I think one of the biggest problems in the data space in general, data analytics, all the rest of it, is this consistent, mind-numbing desire to create more terminology, to create more words about things, and to continue to say that this is the newest, greatest thing that replaced the newest, greatest thing I told you about last week. And while there's advances in technology, all you got to do is scroll through LinkedIn and say, okay, it was data lake. Now it's a data lake house. Now it's a data mesh. Now all those things technically, I'm sure, have a tremendous amount of benefit. But when you when you listen, I think, to the intention of some of those speakers and some of those sources, it's like, I want to create the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now everybody uses my term to describe this new thing, and it's the latest whatever. I call it the Mean Girls school of marketing. If you remember that movie at all, there's a moment where I forget one of the meanest girls just goes, there's one of them who's always saying, oh, that's so fetch. That's so fetch. And the head of the group goes, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. And that's what I feel like saying to some of these folks. It's like, stop trying to make fetch happen. Okay. Just stick with the regular words.
Mm-hmm.
But there is this, it's a cacophony of this terminology, whether it's buzzwords or not. And it's, I think overall, it does a disservice to the skill and value we can bring.
It's definitely confusing. It's like there's a data buzzword industrial complex or something that thrives off this. I mean, I'm waiting for the data trailer park to come out. That's when I know things will be awesome. So,
Data Lake House was the last one that got me. Again, I don't know anything about technically part, but it was like, I just posted something back rather snide. It's like, do you need a data lake house keeper? I mean, really, guys, is this really where we?
And also, I think I saw one of your comments on the data is the new oil, because I think somebody was asking. So, data is the new blank, 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 and it's like, I was gonna write in tobacco, but didn't think that'd be appropriate. So.
Yeah, why? Why does it have to be the new anything?
I don't know, because people get bored. I think, right? We've both been in the data space for a while, but it's interesting because I think what's old is new again. Show me something like incredibly novel that's actually come out that isn't some sort of like abstraction on basically a prior paradigm, like storage, for example, right? So like storing data, you got data lakes, databases, data warehouses, now data lake houses, and all this stuff. But really, you're just storing data. Maybe it's a different take on it, but
yeah, you're putting it somewhere. People say, well, how do you feel that cloud affects it? I said, well, okay, so cloud, theoretically, I can take everything I've got and put it in a place. It's just a place to put stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can get better access to it. I know it's tremendously disruptive and helps all kinds of things technically, but at the highly conceptual level, if I bought a third-party storage unit at U-Haul and I took all my junk out of my closet, my basement, and my attic, and I stuck it there, yeah, I have better access to it. It's all in one place, but it's still a bunch of junk.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do the hard foundational work of data management. And at this point in my career, I've seen enough things go by that I just wait for the latest trend and figure out it's almost a parlor game for me.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that without data management.
Right.
Can't do that without master data. That's not going to work without properly structured data, no matter what it is. And it took me a while, sort of in the middle of my career, to realize, okay, Yeah, that's as sure as gravity. You're going to find it. It's in there somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's masked, even if it looks like it's so incredibly transformatively different. You still need the piece parts. You still need the is it about customers? Is it about brands? And how's your data about your customers and your brands? And if that's not mastered, then it doesn't matter what you're trying to do.
I mean, is there a certain company size where they need to start thinking about master data management, or how would a company go about implementing master data management?
My sort of floor is enterprise. If you're an enterprise, so it's easy to figure out, big enterprises and what that floor is between being sort of a small business and an enterprise. But at the enterprise level, you start to have enterprise systems, ERP, CRM, fintech, multiple divisions, more and more of these silos. Once you get to that level, you've got to have MDM in place. You've got to have formal data management, data governance, whatever you want to call it, in place. I'm a boutique consultant. I don't have to do MDM. I've got a clean, list of clients. I try and keep my YouTube music, cleanly labeled, but those are just sort of personal things. But as you begin to get multiple systems, because multiple systems is where the problem starts, right? So you got multiple systems, they've got differing definitions, they lack any kind of internal standard. You're trying to connect them, you're trying to integrate, you're looking for a common shared view of customer, of relationship, of product 360. Those kinds of things are the symptoms that say if you don't start getting serious around data management and all its different kinds of iterations, you're going to fail. And so it's really that, whatever you would call an enterprise, those are table stakes. If you're an enterprise, you got to have it done.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard to implement master data?
Yeah, it becomes tough. People, it's really emotional. It's really political. There's a lot of technology involved. The consultants that I work with always have a practice area around the idea of culture, because you got to change the way people deal with and trust and, not just store, but access data. Because it's so easy to just create another little thing on the side for that tactical thing you're trying to do. It's so easy if you're a field salesperson to just key in that company name and then run, because your job is to make the sale. You're not in data management.
Right.
So even something as simple as instituting search before you create keeps garbage from coming in. We haven't said it yet, but it's underneath, garbage in, garbage out, GIGO, rubbish in, rubbish out. I like to call that the golden rule of data. Do unto your data as you would have it do unto you. I think there's a version of GIGO that's goodness in, goodness out, but it's a direct relationship, right? Back to your bad pepperoni makes bad pizza. So there's a lot of discipline around it. There's a lot of political consternations around ownership, around definitions. Everybody does want to see things one way, their way. So you've got to break through that somehow. It's difficult to fund because it's an extremely horizontal piece of value. And when I was in the sales side and the marketing side, when I was working at Nielsen and Dun & Bradstreet, I was helping them sell and market their master data and data management services. A challenge was kind of finding the right buyer, because it was always a consensus sell. There wasn't just you just go to marketing and say, or just IT, or just finance. There was usually a consensus we would have to pull together. And it was a fun process. I actually detail a lot of that process in my book, because it's how to figure out what somebody needs to do with data. It was the same. What we did, we found all the names of the systems. We found the different configurations of hierarchies. We found the conflicting geographies. We found examples of bad spellings on, 300 different ways to spell 7-Eleven or IBM. You kind of pulled all this stuff together to build that story that says, we need to focus on this. You need to fix this because the problems here are reverberating in all these different areas that don't actually even sometimes look connected, but you could draw a really good picture for that moment when you were going to go talk to the board or the high level business leaders and go, here's the problem. Here it is. You've got this, you got that, you got this, you got that, you got this. Well, I convinced the company I was consulting for by simply finding the 50 ways they referred to the same client. And I had the name and I had their individual code and their individual systems for it. That added a little meat to the discussion. And I listed them all. This is a global business in 100 countries. They had more than 50. I stopped at 50 because this proves the point. And people are like, look. And so just that tangible evidence right there, they couldn't talk their way out of that. There was nothing strategic about this mess. It was like, you want to know why you can't figure out what you're doing with this customer? Because you got 50 ways to call it. And you cannot, and the kind of work that you have to do to pull all that stuff together on an ad hoc, tactical basis is mind-numbing to some of the other people in the room who really didn't have the voice to speak up about it. But that's a common parable. It's nothing specific to that company.
Mm-hmm. And I guess if master data is working at a company, do you find that a lot of the politics and the cultural issues, those tend to sort of resolve themselves as well, now that people are kind of on the same page, so to speak?
Yeah, it should. Yeah. I mean, if we're all talking about the same definition of something, if your finance numbers tie out with your sales numbers, if your hierarchies are clear, if your leadership gets a comprehensive understanding of their biggest relationships, you're moving on. Amazon is a great example of well-mastered, highly structured, expertly stewarded data. It doesn't work without MDM there. It doesn't work without truly the most, nuts and bolts oriented stuff, like a code number for every product that they sell. So in the consumer packaged goods world, we're all exposed to the UPC, the universal product code, the barcode that's on every bottle and can and bag and tube and box of anything in a supermarket. That number enables all this wonderful transformational stuff that goes on and also allows you to bring any product to any point of sale system and, beep, that little beep is master data in action. That's how I explain it to my family. It's like, you want to see master data go? It's right in there. Someone like Amazon, actually, their product scope is so broad that they had to create their own numbering system. It's called an ASIN, the Amazon something item number. I forget what I should know what ASIN stands for, but look for it. Look for it on every product page. You'll find a little number. They didn't have that number. This stuff falls apart because attached to that number is the manufacturer, the distributor, the category. It's attached to, if I buy it, it's attached to my history. So how do they know I like these kinds of things? Because I bought a thing that was already had a category attached to it. And there's other things with that same category or a related category. And if you don't have that structure, then you can't do those kinds of customer experiences that people are just dying for. Airbnb the same way, Netflix, name them all our favorite, big brands out there that are changing the world. They all rely on highly structured, well-governed, expertly stewarded master reference and metadata. It's on every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Back to your book real quick. By the way, for the audience, the book is telling your data story.
Data storytelling for data management. It is 99% buzzword free. That's a guarantee. I will guarantee. Yeah.
There's only one reference to Data Lakehouse in there. Just kidding.
There might be. I might have just liked Chet. There's definitely a little. Is data the new oil? No, it's neither. That's my answer. It's not oil and it's not new.
I mean, back to kind of first principles. Like, what is a data story?
There's two kinds of data stories in the space. There's the classic data storytelling that the analytics community learns how to tell stories with data, bring analytics, business intelligence, data science output, put it in a way and a form that it's digestible for the business to take action on. Super important. There's probably 20, 30 books out there on that. I looked at it and went, okay, there's another kind of data storytelling. It's data stories about the data, specifically why managing the data is of strategic importance to the enterprise. And that's the story I help people tell. Why doing that work is so critical and directly related to almost every big thing you want to do, even though you can't see those connections. And the reason it's a story is because you've got to convince somebody of something to take action on what you are, the benefits of what you are suggesting. And that kind of story is a pitch. You got to pitch it. You got to sell it. Some people kind of have aversion to the word sales. I'm a 4th generation sales. So, it's in my DNA. And it's the way things move. It's the way business happens, is through convincing people of other stuff. So you got to be able to hone those soft skills, whether you're in data science and the analytics side, where these numbers just sit there, they're not going to tell their own story. People can't find, what are you showing me? And on the data management side, which is even more difficult because there's not a lot to see. You can feel bad data management, but it's hard to see it. You have to put together a compelling narrative to get business stakeholder support, to get funding, to get these things the kind of respect and support that they need. And so that was kind of the impetus for me to write the book, to help bring a voice to that part of the space, so they can get this again after decades of hearing just this frustration. People they don't get it. We got to go pitch. I've worked with some tremendous enterprise data management folks who go, yeah, I'm up again with budgets. I got to justify what we're doing again because we've got new leaders that understand it. You don't have to do that. You're not. And that's, I think that's kind of representative of even the broader data space, the sort of existential exercise that a lot of folks have to go through, which, why should you even exist? Nobody's questioning why finance exists or why marketing exists or why sales exists or why operations exist at a company. So I think, the personification of this kind of effort through something like a chief data officer is really important development in the industry, because now you've got somebody theoretically or properly designed. I'm not an organizational expert, but properly designed. They're sitting at the true C-level. They're separate from IT. They're separate from the other C-level executives, and they represent the power and the value of what data and under data analytics brings to an organization. And they got to be able to pitch. So if they can't pitch, they're going to get their lunch eaten by other executives who actually tell stories for a living, like marketing people. That's what they do. They're all great storytellers. Salespeople. If you can't tell a story in sales, you don't make quota. So those kinds of disciplines, it's part of the success of being a good marketer, of being a great salesperson, is storytelling. Part of the success of being in the data and analytics space isn't necessarily storytelling. And I think that's why a lot of folks like me and, Jordan and Kate and a lot of people we interact with who are out there talking about either side of the storytelling stuff are just, all united in, you got to figure, you got to get better at this.
What are some anti-patterns for telling a story?
What are some what kind of patterns?
Anti-patterns. So some things that you shouldn't do.
Oh, okay.
Like how not to start a data story or talk about one.
Yeah, I mean, I have, in my case, I have some really specific things that you shouldn't lead with. Don't lead with, data's the new oil and a bunch of flowery metaphors that people are in our own space are debating because they're not clear. People won't immediately know what you are talking about. Don't lead with, I try to counsel people to keep the idea of data quality to themselves if they're talking to people who are not in the data part of their organization, because quality is a really emotional, subjective word. And the words that people use to support a quality initiative like cleanse and data hygiene, these are not things that get people excited. So, yeah, we're going to do a hygiene project. I'm good. I don't need that. And data quality itself is just an enabler. So why are you talking about the enabler? But there are people that we need, a data quality initiative. It needs to be a top 5 thing of our initiative in our organization. I go, no, it's not. What are you going to? Why? Who's going to buy into that? Because it's a means to an end. It is an enabler to other things. Now, hearing your organization say, these big consultants came in and they suggested that we take the widgets that we have, that we sell individually, and actually license the value of these widgets as a service through a subscription offering. Big strategic move, changes our whole financial dynamic, entirely, transforms our relationship with our customers and our partners. That's an awesome thing. That's a board level initiative. You're going to need a whole lot of data to do that. So people who are in the data side should be in those discussions going, you can't get this done without master data, reference data, metadata, all those basic piece parts. So starting your story, as I mentioned, start with how it enables the strategic intentions of your enterprise. I repeat the same phrases over and over again because they're easier for people to remember, and that's the way I try and talk about stuff in a consistent way. And your challenge is, your exercise is, okay, go find those intentions. What's your company trying to do?
Let me give you a hypothetical. So you had a startup that wanted to master its data from day one. What are some things that they can do?
That's a great question. Depending on the domain, they should look elsewhere and try not to do it on their own. So if it's a company file, you can go to folks like Dun & Bradstreet, BVD. They're syndicated providers that have high quality, standardized data sets on things that you're trying to figure out on your own. Okay, the first field is the company name. The second field is the address. And like, why you got to figure that out on yourself? There's no creativity there. I worked with, when I was at Nielsen, the business that I ran at Nielsen was, when I picked it up, when I started there, it was literally a 30-year-old store list business. So we had a list of every supermarket in the country. And part of the people I sold to early on were kind of startups who were doing executional things like putting brokers or merchandisers or field forces into stores, and we go, look, we have the list already. Why are you trying to do this on your own? This is not your business. So smaller companies, we encourage them to just use ours as their framework. Larger companies, they already had one. So we had to integrate it, augment it, enrich it. Sometimes they would cut over to ours. Sometimes they wouldn't. It depended, because there's a lot of dependencies on that data. But if you're small, why try it yourself? Is that your business? No, it's not your business. So again, it depends on the domain. Look for the standards bodies in your industry. So if you're a startup in the financial services world, startup in manufacturing, startup in whatever that vertical is, pretty good chance there's a standards body there that's already done a whole bunch of the work that you're trying to think through on your own. And nothing's a bigger waste of time than a bunch of, entrepreneurial, brilliant people sitting around a room with a whiteboard doing what I just suggested. Okay, the first field is name, and the second field is, do we have city and state and zip separate? It's like, Why are you wasting your time doing that? People have thought that through. Find somebody who has standardized data around the domain that you are trying to attack. And at least they may not have everything, but start there. Start there. And you don't have to have it all mastered either. I mean, I'm not trying to go against my own religion, but like I said, the enterprise level is where it gets really complicated. And if you have 2 accounts, you don't need to master that. They're already there. So it depends on the size and the complexity.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Interesting. Kind of switching gears a bit. You do a lot of speaking. Like a lot. How did you get into the speaking at conferences, and I guess now speaking on virtual conferences and interviews like this?
I love it. So first of all, yes, thanks for bringing that up. It's my favorite thing to do, and it's actually what I believe I'm the best at. I got into it because in college I did a lot of drama. So I was not a dramatic arts major, but I did a lot of plays I'd done a couple in high school, but then I got really into it in college, where literally every quarter I was doing at least a play, sometimes 2 plays at a time. And I just loved it. And then when I got out of school, I was in the Bay Area. I did a bunch of community theater. I never had the aspiration to, go to Hollywood or really focus on it. A bunch of my friends did try, had that kind of mindset, and I just never really had it, but I loved the experience. And so when I got into business, it was natural for me. And whatever role I was in, I would just do it. So it started off at being, okay, we're going to go to this meeting and Scott's going to do the presentation, because there's all kinds of techniques that I draw on a daily basis that I learned in college and right outside of college, just those kind of dramatic arts techniques. And it really helps set me apart in terms of my skill set in kind of a general agenda, because I have an understanding of lights and sight, and timing and where to stand and vocal, using your voice for effect. And those things don't come naturally. I mean, if you're just a business person trying to learn how to do public speaking. So I would always stand out in an agenda, not because I was being competitive. It's just I had that presence, that stage presence. And so I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And then when I was at Nielsen, I did a ton of it. It helped a lot with the brand that I was representing, because I would go to conferences and speak on behalf of Nielsen. And I did a ton of it at Dun & Bradstreet. And then when I went out on my own, this period of my life is the only time where I've actually gotten just paid for it to do it. So that's really exhilarating, to just get paid to be the keynote speaker, to be this. And there's always, you got to deliver. Right. So, there's a certain amount of confidence, but there's a certain amount of trepidation of, okay, here's this room. Are they going to believe this? Are they going to buy this? Is this going to work? Is the timing right? Am I okay? Do I feel good? All those kind of things that go in there. But I do. I'm glad you brought it up, because I love it. And it's always, any job I ever worked at, there was usually a moment where people thought of me differently 99.9% of the time in a positive sense once they saw me speak. Mm-hmm. And the greatest business day I had at Nielsen, the CEO at Nielsen, if you don't mind me, you want to go off on these little stories, right? Is that okay?
Go for it.
So the CEO at Nielsen at the time was a guy named Dave Calhoun. He's a world-class leader. He's now running Boeing. Okay, so this guy has the goods. He was brought up it was one of Jack Welch's proteges at GE, just like an amazing leader. I never worked with anybody of that caliber. And I met him and we hit it off, and he asked me to come to his first global leadership meeting at Nielsen when he was taking over Nielsen. So this was a big deal corporately. So I didn't have the rank to be invited to it as a global leader. So he wanted me to come and tell the story of my business. And the facilitators were like, you have 10 minutes, everybody got 10 minutes. That's all you have. We're timing this. We're going through it all this. And he'd never seen me present. And some people had. So I get up there and I'm kind of a natural. I do some funny stuff in the beginning and I just freaking nailed it. I mean, sometimes you're on and sometimes you're on. And I was on that day. And I came on, and the place went crazy and people were, high-fiving me. And it was a big moment for me personally and professionally to be just in front of this whole organization and Dave and folks of his ilk. And we're at this fancy hotel. I bump into him alone later. And he just looks at me. He goes, "You dog." Like I had sort of said, like he said, I had no idea. And I was like, what can I tell you, Dave? And it was great. So that, I know I've got that in me. And so I always try and find like, okay, how do I show that? Because that's my best suit, I think, is playing that. And, similar things, not of that scope, happened at Dun & Bradstreet. And, you just kind of get up there and people go, oh. And then they deal with you and work with you differently after that. But that's something I've seen my entire career and kind of leaned into it, recognized it. I'm always working on it. I'm always trying stuff. It doesn't just, you got to practice, you got to be ready, you got voices, got to be, all that kind of stuff. So
walk me through that. I mean, how do you practice? And I guess, do you practice for a particular talk you're going to give, or is it just like a routine where you just kind of practice your stage or screen presence?
Presence is kind of hard to practice. I mean, but there's certain things like eye contact. I'm not looking at you, Joe, right? I'm looking at the camera the whole time. So and I've learned over the last year, I've been working a lot on kind of digital presence, because being theatrical and being in theater and being on stage, which most of the speaking I did that's a different form of the techniques. So over the last year, I've really been trying to work on and get better at and find tips and, practice kind of the more digital. Here we are just like in this square, and does that work, and the lights and all that kind of stuff. But the content is something, I mean, you do have to rehearse. I think you do. A lot of people don't. I mean, I even write in a book. I mean, if you're just going to do an elevator pitch, or a 5-minute presentation, there are more people than not that don't do it until they have to do it. Mm-hmm. That's the worst time to practice. I mean, even elite sports figures practice, have coaches, it doesn't just come. And, some stuff some of my content is so well oiled that I just kind of fall into it and it's really comfortable. And then I listen to myself, and then I know when I'm kind of going off a little bit the wrong way and trying to bring myself back. This started to happen when I was doing drama. There's like 2 thinking paths that are going on. There's the one where you are actually that people see. Then there's the little voice in me that's like, okay, was that right? Or did I miss that? Or this is coming, or I didn't. There's like a little critical sort of director voice in my head too. So you got it, so some of these things I just fall into, and it becomes kind of a natural pattern, and I'll find a way that I really like to deliver it. And I listen to almost everything I do. So that's particularly helpful. And I encourage anybody who's getting into this, anybody who's trying it, record what you do, then listen to it. No better teacher than yourself. Well, how do I listen to it? I don't like how I sound. It's like, listen to it. I picked up really early on, I have a list that is not completely crossed off of verbal tics. I was sick of hearing myself say, and not just and ah, it's responding to when somebody says something with the word absolutely. It's like the most popular response on a podcast, like, well, absolutely. It was okay, come up with something different than that. But it takes practice. It's a skill. It's just like anything else. So it's a skill. You got to practice. You got to know where you're good, where you're not. You got to it's hard to get sort of coaching independently for what I'm doing now but feedback, media feedback helps and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I do run through this stuff, and it's hard. It's unpleasant. I mean, I go, all right, I got to do this. I got to stand up and do it like there's 1,000 people there. You just kind of pretend in your head. That's what the dramatic arts part of me helped me with, is I was fair. If I can pretend I'm somebody else in front of 1,000 people when I was in college, I can certainly talk about something I already know in front of people who are trying to understand it.
It's pretty cool too how, these experiences that you have in college, right, or at any point in your life, it's almost serendipitous how these sort of experiences come back in your professional career. Things that at the time you're like, drama, okay, that doesn't seem to be like the most obvious path to selling a master data management, but somehow it ends up working really well. I always find that really cool.
Yeah, for me, and I've told folks I've reconnected with from those days, have gone off in theatrical things or other stuff. I say I've drawn this stuff all the time. Draw it all the time. And it gives you, there's the show must go on. There's an ability mentally to put things aside. So when you go on stage, it's like you're in that character, you're doing that. Now, I'm not playing a character when I'm talking about data management, but there is that discipline of, okay, whatever just happened, you can't carry that on, you don't bring that in there with you. You've got to get focused on that moment. They always talk in acting about, being in the moment. That's reacting, that's connecting with somebody, that's really realizing what is truly happening and letting people, see that you're experiencing that. And that doesn't come naturally to a lot of folks.
Not at all. No.
So I'm fortunate, but that's all I do. I know my part in the space. I think I know my position. I think I play it well, but I know my position. I'm not touching,
You're going to become like a cloud engineer or something.
No.
That's awesome. I mean, you also wrote a book. I mean, walk me through that process of writing a book. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. It was really painful. I said, I can write. I'm not a writer. There's some friends I have who are just like, that's how they express themselves. I can do it. I do a decent job at it. I can get it done, but it's always, for me, it's always such a chore. So last year, about a year ago, about now, I've been thinking about a book, and lockdown came and all the rest of it. And I had at least some presence of mind of going, all right, all my events were canceling. I had a bunch of stuff set. I was going to Europe or doing stuff in Berlin. I was looking at stuff all over the country, all that, some were in plans, some had been committed, but it all kind of vanished physically. And I realized I'm going to have time now like I'm not going to get again. And if I don't do it now, I don't know when I'm going to do it. So just freaking do it. That's my inner monologue. And so that became my COVID project. I had a great publisher. I think I hit upon a positioning that really worked, which wasn't there in all my years of planning it, or a couple of years of planning it. That was not what I was thinking about. Kind of the chapters were there, the content in the chapters, but I needed a positioning. I actually went to my publisher and said, I want to write a book about why you need data, why data is important, why strategic data is important. And he's like, we have 20 of those already, and none of them are selling. And I had a second idea. I said, well, data storytelling seems to be like the hottest non-technical thing going on in the space. And it's all about analytics, but there's no data storytelling for data management. He goes, that's it. I go, okay, good. It didn't change a whole lot past the cover, but it gives it a positioning and a direction that allowed me to do a lot of the stuff I had and sort of pointed at that, which was really important. So I started by he goes, how long do you think it's going to be? I said, how little can I get away with? I mean, I'm that kind of, I'm still that high school part of me is going, all right, 5 pages. How big are the margins? How many words? And I just started collecting, because I did so much speaking. I had transcripts of those. I had all these videos. I had written a couple of white papers. So I was not going to start with a blank sheet of paper. And I spent a good 6 weeks, 2 months almost, just like grabbing stuff, collecting. Okay, here's a paragraph. Here's a thought. And I threw it into this writing software, Novelize, it's called. There's a bunch of them out there. which just kind of collects it. You can put it in chapters and it gives you that all important word count. I'm looking at the word count. Okay, I got 20,000. I got 23,000. I need another chunk here. I'll do that. And I also got to a point where I realized, okay, every idea I ever had in my life isn't going into this book.
Right.
That's a thing I think you have to realize. Every person I ever dealt with, I can't mention. There's a first part of it's called My Data Story, which is subtitled Why You Should Believe Me. And even just writing that, it's like, this is not my life story. This has to be very specific and very crisp around the data portions of my life that make sense within this very specific context. And it was still too long. The couple of people I sent it to and my publisher all came back with the same feedback that went, that first section, it's fun to read, but you got to get to the point there. So it's like, all right, the Scott Taylor story. It's not called the Scott Taylor story. And then just started to hone it, shape it around there. There were some big missing pieces. I had a couple of people that were great enough to read it. This really good friend of mine who worked at Dun & Bradstreet, as well as my son, who's just a great writer. He's a PhD student at Yale. Nice. I say that because I tell that to everybody. My son's a PhD student at Yale. And he gave me some really great feedback. I didn't go out to 20 people. I didn't want that much, but a couple of people that I trusted kind of helped me with it. Shaped it around. And the scariest moment was, I think this is it, sending it to the publisher and waiting. And he came back and went, this is a great read. I was like, for me, it was just, he could have just said, yes, you have a book. Because I've written small stuff, but lots of small things together doesn't necessarily make a narrative that makes sense all the way through it. So that was a huge relief. And it's part of why I didn't want to self-publish, as financially attractive as that is. I mean, by the way, anybody writing a book out there, the person who makes the least on the book is the person who wrote it. So it's not really about that. But I really felt at this point in my career, if I wanted to take the next step in speaking, in market level presence, in kind of my personal branding and positioning, all the rest of it, that was mandatory, that I have to have a book. And I wanted that validation to say, okay, this is a real publisher. They publish data and analytics books. They're pretty well known. They publish the DEMBOK, which is like the textbook about data management. They publish all kinds of analytics practitioner books. So for me, it was the right publisher, right guy. He's a great guy to work with, Techniques Publications, Steve Hoberman. And he went, this is fun. This is good. This is not like we don't have a lot of them with this kind of tone, which was good. And it's light, if you're going to have a book about how to tell stories crisply and concisely, it can't be 100,000 words.
Right.
It's got to be, crisp and concise. And then just getting it. It was like hugely satisfying when it was finally over. But it's not like I'm ready to write another one. Like I'm gonna surf on this for a while. And it was funny because I was giving him ideas over the summer. It's like, once we had the book, we could do this promotion. Because I'm a marketing promotion hound. And every time he was very gentle, but his answer was always some form of, let's get the book done first. You got to eat your meat before you can have your pudding. That's the way it goes. So he was a good partner in that sense.
You mentioned this book has set you up for your next chapter, I guess. What is that to you? What is your next chapter?
For me, it's doing more of what I'm doing. So
cool.
If I can get bigger stages, if I can get bigger audiences, if I can get bigger speaking gigs, if I can work, I'm already progressing nicely. I started, and how we met and that group that we hang with of, Kate and George and Susan and Jordan and, Ravit and all this, content creators. And we all have our own shows. We all have our own, stuff, which is really fun. It reminds me for the first time in a long time of what it was like in dramatic arts in college, where everybody was creative. Everybody had a talent. Everybody kind of played stuff and they supported it and they had a different style because everybody in our various groups, they all do stuff. They've all got a point of view. They've all got a really strong presence. They've got a clear positioning of what they are and where they fit, and they're all, great on camera. I mean, it's a fun group. So for me, and that's all I'm doing for a living now. So this is it. So when I left Dun & Bradstreet, I tried to do some consulting, product consulting. I did some of it, but I started doing speaking. And then I started seeing people like Kate. Kate was one of them, Bernard Marr, these folks who were just like, they're just doing just this. I wonder if I can do just this. So for me, my progression was, I have to figure out very clearly, do I have a point of view untethered from the brands I've represented? That was kind of an existential moment for me, right? I mean, if you've got Nielsen on your moniker or D&B on your moniker, that gives you a certain amount of access, and you can represent what they're, and they've got a lot of stuff that they talk about, so you just can talk about it in your own way. Will anybody care? right? Like it following, likes, whatever. And then could I get sponsorship for it? So that was the third thing, right? So you got to have a point of view that's different, that's meaningful, that resonates. You've got to have people that will care about it, follow it, share it, engage with it. Then you have a proposition to say to people who are looking for folks like me, look, I can help you either by associating yourself with me or helping you craft your thing or work together, all the rest of it. So I checked all three of those boxes remarkably quickly. It was a really thrilling moment in my life after spending decades in the corporate world of going like, yeah, I could make it go. All right, cool. So it was doing speaking gigs for just business expenses. Can you fly me out there? Can I also get a hotel? Can you pay for the Uber? To getting some money, to getting better speaking deals, to then my moving into this year, one of my objectives, which I hit, was I wanted to work with fewer brands, but on a more consistent strategic basis. So I worked with 14 companies last year. I've got 2 primary sponsors this year, Wind Shuttle and the Comma Group. They're both in the MDM space. One's a consultant, one's a platform provider. And for me, that gave me obviously more consistency. And it wasn't so much about the revenue as it was about, okay, now I don't have to always be trying to find sort of the next thing. They can sponsor my stuff. I'll do things with them. Things I do that aren't kind of for them, I can say are sponsored by them, which is good because that's part of what we're doing. And kind of took that sort of hustle level out, which is nice. I'm still doing projects for some folks. I'm still doing, ad hoc speaking gigs, which are really fun, or content stuff or that sort of thing. But for me, it's just to continue that. How do I do more of these? How do I do bigger ones? I was about to, before COVID hit, literally last January, I was preparing to go more general market public speaking about data in speaker bureaus and things like that. And these people, make a nice living and have a great life. And it's really fun. If you love it, it's fun. Folks like me and those folks are the ones on the agenda that do not start with like, as unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, or, I'm the only thing between you and drinks. No, we're out there to like change the energy in the room, set the tone for an event, get people galvanized. There's nothing like being backstage or waiting and going, all right, these 500 people, I know they're all going to feel different in about 3 minutes once I get up there. Energy-wise, just sheer energy-wise. So that ability that I have, like I said up front, which I think is one of my strongest suits, is like, let's just keep leveraging that. And it's a whole lot more fun than doing product consulting, which I was doing, or more sort of internal stuff. So I'm at a point in my career where I'm really at wanting to do just the stuff I feel like I want to do that's the most fun. And it's, I'm fortunate to have gotten to this point, but it's, how do we do more of the same?
Yeah, that's so awesome. It really is.
Puppet shows. I mean, I'm doing more puppets. That's last year. My most creative thing was the book. This year, it's a multi-part series episodes with those puppets I created last year that go through all the trials and tribulations of, data problems. The CDO, the chief dog officer, the ITB who speaks in buzzwords, the cat sultan from Meow Kinsey. You know, I got a whole cast of characters that I'm working on, and I'm similar to my book. I've got a bunch of little notes everywhere and bits and pieces, and I got to sit down and write this thing because it's not, ad-libbed. It's got to be a script. So, and for me, it's really fun. It's really, my sponsors are sponsoring it, and it's a really fun thing to be thinking about.
It's awesome, man. Well, I hope we can catch up whenever in-person events are a thing again. So.
Yeah, it'd be great. No, there's so many of us who've never actually been in the same room.
Yeah.
But we talk to each other like, a couple times a week, if not daily sometimes. So.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's, I would say it's interesting with COVID, the number of people that I've met. I've probably met the most people actually during the last year. And it's precisely because of interactions like we've all had, right? Where it's, you're not geographically bound anymore. So you can kind of chat with whoever you want, really.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. I don't know what was stopping it before, actually. I think it was just everyone was maybe more provincially minded or something.
It was that
sure.
In my part of the space, there's, the immediate go-to was, okay, physical meeting, right? You got to go see the client. I was in sales for so long. It was like, see the client. My dad, who was a magazine publisher, had a stamp that he used on call reports for his salespeople, and that just said, see the client. It was like, boom, and 5 a day. And, so I came from that kind of grind. And then there was, okay, we'll have a phone call, which was the second default.
Mm-hmm.
A Zoom meeting was almost a novelty. Now that's the default.
Right.
It's kind of a relief sometimes when somebody goes, oh, let's just have a phone call. All right, that's cool. And there's no way an element of this doesn't remain, because it's really convenient. You could do, nothing replaces that physical interaction, but there's so much, I think, that we all did that maybe could have been more efficient on.
Yeah.
I talked to a guy yesterday who's going to have a podcast. He wants me on his podcast. And he's like, okay, we're doing this at this club in New York. If you can come down there, and we'll have a camera crew and we'll take some pictures. And I'm thinking, like, first of all, I said, I'm not going anywhere till August, so fine. But I also thought, like, for that 45-minute interview, that's like, I got to get on a train. That's like a half a day minimum. I got to go to New York. I've done a ton of podcasts and these kind of interviews. It's like, all right, why don't we just boot up and
right
do it here? So, but yeah, it'll be nice to be in the same room with people again. I've got somebody talking to me about going to an event in Disney World in August, so that'll be fun. If I get that gig, that'll be a blast.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, I got my first COVID jab last week, so
congrats.
By then, yeah.
Yeah, got mine too. Without the side effects of like my eyes bleeding and stuff. I'm just kidding. It's all good.
I was fine. They say you have to get both shots in the same vaccination site, and my question is, how do they find the hole? I don't know how they're going to do that. The freckle here, this same freckle.
Just something hit the freckle. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, cool, man. It was good chatting with you. We'll keep chatting a lot, I'm sure. Like I said, I'm glad to be that we're all part of the this group. I think you're right. It does kind of remind me of like a drama troupe, but in the best way possible. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, we all got our strengths. It's really fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, cool.
Well, good. Wonderful.
Have a great day. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, you too. No, thank you so much. This was fun.
All right, Scott Taylor. All right, take care, man.
Bye.
Bye.